And this is it. I'm just starting to imply the grooves that the hair follicles travel in. But just gentle, you know what I mean? I'm just dust it in until I know what I want. Just like sketch, 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 sketch. Okay, I want that. Boom, boom, boom. And then go in with more intensity as far as hand motion and saturation. So, barely touching. I mean, the needles are going in, but I'm not resting there. I'm not making a circular. I'm not, I'm just making some dots, just putting in some, what's the best way to put it? Just, really, it's a sketch. I hate to use this word sketch because you might equate it with scratch, but it's not. I mean, those dots are in there at the depth they'd be in there if I tattooed them full strength. It's just there's less of them, and they're less intense, and they're spaced further apart, and that's all due to hand motion. Lightening up the gray. I like to put out this, it's probably that rigor mortis color from the zombie set as an even lighter gray. It tends to be a cool gray. And I'll tap into that now and then. The other thing I've learned is if you just rely on white, let's say, to lighten your colors, they seem to get too bright too fast. They also get too opaque too fast, in my opinion. So I like to put out a light gray, a yellow ochre, an ivory or a bone or a light ochre. Some options that are up at the higher end of the value scale in brightness, but not white. Because I want that. I want to have more to go. And once you start tinkering with too much white, there's nowhere else to go. So as you see, when it's pulled back, when we get those few seconds of a longer camera shot, it's already there, you know what I mean? And it's a lot of it's still missing, but it's already there. This is the dog. I'm feeling, I would say 90% confident that the tattoo is going to be fine. And now I could just have fun and be an artist and make more decisions that may or may not be in the photo. Because again, I want hyper realism in a way. I want, the combination, like I said earlier, of what is there with what I know to give the customer the best representation of the subject. And I'm not afraid or embarrassed to show you guys this process, especially like something like coming in real close. You see the areas that aren't done, they look pretty not done. They look pretty loose, sketchy, crappy, poopy. Insert your adjective here. But the point is that I do it so that I can go further. So whether or not that line right there I'm about to sculpt off of was done right the first time, as long as it represents what it's supposed to represent, I don't care. I don't care if it's sketchy or broken or sketchy or whatever, because now I'm going to go in and I'm going to reinforce everything either with a round or with a magnum. Like even that line that went down the middle of the lips right there, that was a scratchy poopy line. But now with the Magnum, it's not a line at all. It's an edge. It just helps me to achieve a clean edge. So I'm not worried in this style of tattooing about my line work, as you could tell. Because I do put lines in the tattoos, and I've said that before, but my lines are more about edges when I tattoo realism. They're less about representing linear data, and more about just achieving edge. Sometimes I'll throw in linear data, just because I think it's graphic and makes the tattoo hold up. I'll throw a line on the outside of a head of a realism piece like this if I think it sits better on the person's body. You've got to have good, positive and negative relationships. You have to have contrast off the body. You can't, unless it's an effect you're trying to achieve, you can't have the tattoo disappearing in places into the body unless, like I said, it's a special effect. If it's done intentionally, great, but if it happens by accident, it's not great at all. So the same but different, eh? Wink, wink. But I can tell that tattoo is no less my dog than the picture, because her personality is there, the resemblance is there, and now it's just all my artistic choices as far as color and so on. What's going to look best on that leg next to those other colors. I mean, we've got pieces down below that were done by other artist friends of mine, and there's some, pretty saturated greens and blues and some desaturated purples. This is all stuff I have to consider because everything will be tied together at some point. Some point soon, actually. I think we're supposed to do it within a month of this voiceover. And on the opposite side of this same leg is a portrait of my male dog from about 6 years ago, and thank God still looks pretty much like the year she got it. Hasn't lost anything, and real happy with the results. Right here we're probably looking at like a 9-round shader. It's either a 9-round shader or it's a very small Magnum. I'd need a close-up to tell you, but I think it's a round shader. Just trying to get the rolls of the flesh of the lip. Yeah, round shader, I think. Yes, definitely. So I'm using a 7-round or 9-round shader at this point, just to put in some hair follicles and bring up some of the rolls of the lip. But at this point I'm in my zone for quite a while. I'm enjoying it, having fun. There's the added joy of it's my dog, it's my wife, So, it's a lot of fun. And again, not using the same color for all of this either, depending on where and what intensity I want. I'm using some brown, I'm using some reddish, I'm using some grayed out, I'm using some stuff that has a little more black in it. You know, looking at the photo, how intense do I want it? And also, you know, speaking to intensities, some of them very blurry, some of them sharper. These are all artistic choices at this point. Looking at the photo, deciding what would make the best tattoo, and kind of meeting somewhere in the middle. As opposed to just trying to, you know, 100% dedicated copy of the photo. Because it's not. You can see that it's not. To me, when I squint it down, the follicles are more intense at the bottom, they're less intense at the top. So that's kind of what I tried to portray there. Probably off camera, mixing some color. Let's see what I did. Yeah, so now obviously is the time where I can overlay the structural shading. Again, being careful not to, you know, you don't want to overwork the spots where you put those follicles in, because you could as easily rip that color out too. But it's all gonna take time, guys. It's gonna take time, and it's gonna take tattooing for you to figure out, when have I done too much to the skin? When could I have done more to the skin? So be aware of these things. Tell your customers to come back, and don't tell them to come back because you want to see whether or not you tore up their skin. Come up with a more practical explanation, like, hey, you know, I'd like to see you in 6 or 8 weeks to take some nice healed photos. And when they come, don't allude to anything about what you're observing about the tattoo, and take some good photos, because then you can go in private and study them. And then if you feel the need, you can call the client, and believe me, I've done it, and many people who've worked for me have been told to do it, and it's worth doing, because ultimately this is your portfolio. These are your pieces. If you can't live with what you see in the photo, you need to call that person back and say, hey, listen, Sue, Bob, Charlie, I was looking at your photo and I love the tattoo, and thank you so much, for being a client of mine. I just, there's some things about it I'd really like to run through. I need like 45 minutes, an hour. Could you come in, blah, 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 no charge. It was such a great experience. I just want to give you the extra mile, and apologize for being a perfectionist. Don't apologize for making a mistake, and never admit to making a mistake or leaving something out. Say, hey man, you know me, I'm an artist, I'm a perfectionist, and I like you guys, and I just want it to be perfect. Yeah, who's going to say no to that, right? And you really do mean it, hopefully. But it's going to come back to you tenfold. Anything good you put out there is going to come back to you, I promise. So you see, now I'm going through and I'm doing like the construction of the flesh rolls of the upper jowls, using the hair follicles as the guideline. And also, if you notice now, you could see those white whiskers I put in early when it was still a stencil there. I'm tattooing around those because I want those whiskers to show at the end as going over all of this stuff. And you can't tattoo through those colors with white and have it last and look the way you want it to look, like a very fine negative space. So there's the advantage of doing the white early. Again, with just a light pass, light enough to know they're there and to tattoo around them. And then when we do the final white highlight pass, we're going to go back in with more intensity and build those whiskers up. Same thing, anywhere I've established a dark edged fold, I want to go right up against the darkest edge with some light, helps everything pop. And this is all contrast in action. Lightest lights next to darkest darks gives you a lot of pop, you know. None of these colors are new. They've already been used in the tattoo. I mean, by now you should be able to tell me what they are. This is that bone color. Not quite white, with a little bit probably of the tan residue still in there. Where it goes warm, I'm dipping into that straight out of the bottle brown color. And if that's too dark, I'll dip it into a little of the tan color to make it a little lighter and also lessen the intensity of the redness. Push, pull, temperature. And that's it, more of the same. What I'm going to try and do here is just decide what I want my fully saturated effect to be in this area and accomplish it now, with the exception of the whiskers, which we'll, you know, run over again at the end. Our whitest whites at the end. That's the that looks like the bone with maybe a little ochre in it, or I might have even took the bone and tapped into some of that rigor mortis gray just to take the yellowness, and because the rigor mortis has a little blue in it, yellow and blue can be somewhat complementary, you know, blue and orange, yellow and purple, so you're in the same kind of family, so they neutralize each other. If you use them in the right ratios and if they're kind of neutral to begin with. So a little soak down, wipe down time. I like to use Bactine because it takes swelling down and it helps with pain. But another, you know, problem with Bactine is almost like what I was saying earlier about, you know, balms and ointments and stuff during the tattoo, is that if you use the Bactine too prematurely, it will wipe the stencil away because it's got, I guess, a certain amount of either alcohol or something like alcohol in it. Yeah, it's probably got a little alcohol in it because it's an antiseptic wash. And the alcohol is a solvent that'll take the mineral spirit ink away. The stencil ink away. So there it is, wiped down. And you can see, you know, as graphic as it is, your eye blends it all together. Bigger mag here, probably 17. Side to side with the lights. Again, not fully saturating until I feel I've made the right decision, and then I will fully saturate. And that could be achieved by multiple sweep passes or circular passes to get full saturation. So I kind of did a combination of everything right there. Alright, so the parts that I'm going to do now are going to be fairly repetitive, so I'm going to step away from the microphone for a while, let you guys watch. I'll be back shortly. Just edging in the colors of the eyebrow. But again, no new color. This is all the same color palette that was used throughout, which started down in the neck and chest, and now has, you know, migrated its way through the whole piece. The only difference is being lightening it with bone or ochre, depending on whether I want it to just come up in value or also get warmer in temperature. And then the darkening it with either the warm brown where I want warm darks, or black where I want cool darks, because black, tends to be a cool color. Most black is cool. White is cool as well. That's why I tend to use the bone and ochre rather than white until the very end, because white can make things kind of gray out or get too cold. Okay, enjoy. So what you're seeing here is I'm up in the ear doing the more reddish tones. So this is that reddish brown, and then I'm also using papaya and seashell, and then cutting with white. I'm not cutting with the ochre or the bone in this instance because they're gonna kind of muddy the color up in a way I don't want. So I'm trying to keep everything kind of cool, kind of, warm and pink, and white definitely helps lighten pink colors. Now, if you're doing something that's more flesh tone or red, like literally red, like an apple or a tomato, you don't want to lighten with white because it's going to turn your highlights pink or your light tones pink. That's when you're going to want to use yellow to get your reds lighter, or a tangerine to get your reds lighter, or orange. Basically, you should be thinking about the color wheel when you're lightening color and trying not to lose the saturation or the intensity of color. So if you look at the color wheel, if you want to lighten a red and you go around the wheel in the direction that's lighter, well, when you move from red to orange to yellow, it's getting lighter. If you want to make your reds darker and you go in the other direction visually on the color wheel, you're going to see your red going from red to purple to blue. So you would add purples and blues to get darker in a red passage. Now up here, it's kind of more, again, it's like a pastel. So we're not really dealing with full-on saturated color. So what I wanted was a little of the brown, because it tended to be a reddish brown anyway. That papaya and seashell from Eternal, which are also kind of pinks, but they're pink to the blue a little bit, but not too much. They're not so pink to the blue that they're magenta. They just have a little bit of a what's the word I'm looking for? They tend to be more fleshy, and of course I think that's why they're included in the portrait set. They have more of a fleshy pink and less of a flamenco or a flamingo or magenta, like a crayon pink or a cartoon pink. So it works very nice for reddish pink areas in natural settings, like animals or people or what have you. I'm zipping some lines again just to hold things together. I think I do go back and maybe make these lines more graphic on the outer edge of the head, depending. Like if the color winds up dark up against that, you don't need the line, and if it doesn't, then I usually go back and reinforce the line. This is probably a 7 shader or a 9 shader. I tend to not use very tight liners on realism pieces. If I use a 5, I try to use one that's relatively loose. It's not easy to do with the Hawk needles because they tend to be tight, but in that case I'll pick up the shading round instead of the lining round. Cool. So we have that ear, the pink of the ear roughed in pretty decent. Some A&D just to get some glide and to soothe the customer's leg. Just systematically working my way back up. So everything I do on this side is going to be very much like what I did on the other side. So just keep an eye on that, and you'll see me now sharpen the details of the other side of the nose, the other eye, and so on. Stippling a little with the black just to get the nose effect. The texture of a dog nose. Again, building, 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 sketching and building, sketching and building until, the skin has everything it needs and you can't take no more. Very gently here with what looks like the 5-liner, sketching, sharpening edges, achieving full saturations, texturing. Because I would say second to the eyes with a dog, people like to look at dogs' noses because they're usually high contrast off the face and they have an interesting texture. So randomness is a hard thing to achieve, and it's definitely worth practicing with a pen and paper or a colored pencil and paper. So you don't want your dots to look too orderly or too even, or you don't even want them to all be the same darkness or lightness if you can help it. So just practice being random. When all else fails, try and move your hand in almost like a sloppy figure 8 tends to help with randomness. Again, sharpening. Looking, you see my head tilting when it pops into the shot, tilting back and forth from the tattoo to the photo, just to make sure I'm not. Yeah, I can get artsy with it. I can do my thing, but I don't want to not keep my resemblance. I can't miss a landmark. That would be a big mistake at this point. All right, cool. So just watch carefully, and like I said, I'm not doing anything new. So just check out the rendering, and I'll be back. Cool. So basically, we've brought the forehead quite a bit a ways. Same color scheme. You guys bored yet? You should be. But it's the, all kidding aside, it's the same color scheme that we've been working throughout. And just a matter of proper hand motions to get the blends nice and smooth. Looking at the photo to tell what do we want light, what do we want dark, what do we want in the middle, what do we want warm, and what do we want cool. And that is the whole process. I know it sounds simple, and with practice it will be simple. Without practice it's real hard. I mean, just to watch a DVD or to read a book and to sit down and try and knock something out, it's not going to work that way. So just really, again, want to encourage you guys, go to an art class, study painting, or color theory, or I mean anything you can get your hands on. The fact that you bought this DVD, hopefully you bought it, you didn't steal it or pirate it or borrow it. But buying the DVD shows me you have a commitment. So just continue to invest in your education and continue to apply it. See, that's the thing. Education itself can become a distraction and an addiction. There's a really good book called The War of Art, and it's written by Pressfield, and it talks about all the distractions that keep us away from doing our art, which is really what, my belief is. It's what God put me here to do my art. No matter what your belief is, you're driven to do art, again, or you wouldn't be watching this. And there's a force behind that wants you to do art. Even if you believe it's just yourself, that's fine. But the point being, there are so many things that will distract us from doing what we should be doing, which as artists is art. Drugs, alcohol, socializing, video games, there's so many. Bad relationships, codependent relationships, bad work environments. But believe it or not, one of them, which is a real strange one, and it's one that I suffered from early in my career, is the education and compiling of information can just become another addiction that keeps you from working, because instead of working, what you're doing is you're watching DVDs, you're reading books, you're compiling information, but you're never applying that information. So you've become a great librarian and compiler and knower of things, but those things aren't worth anything until you apply them. So I just want to stress to you, don't wait forever to flip the switch and apply what you've learned. Try to learn something and apply it right away. Force yourself every day to try something new and try something different. not necessarily on a person, but on paper or on canvas or on the computer, whatever other mediums you're comfortable with, even if it's just with a pencil and paper in your sketchbook, to try to draw something new or try to render a new texture that you've never tried to draw. I mean, all of these things are valid exercises. And application is the only thing that makes education worth anything. The only thing you can do with education, if you don't apply it, is share it, which is a great thing. But, you know, if you're here to be an artist and you're watching this to get better, if you watch it and put it on the shelf and say, I know everything Keith said in that video, I have it memorized, da 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 da, and then you never apply one thing I say, well, what good was it? You know what I mean? So application. Eventually, every good thing in life comes with a little bit of risk. You're going to have to step out on the ledge at some point and give one of these techniques a shot. You have paper to rehearse on, and then eventually it's going to be applying it to a person. I would say, you know, work yourself in gently, you know, look for subjects that have a little margin for error. And that's one good thing about pets and dogs, is there's a little bit of a margin for error versus like doing someone's child or wife or something that's where there's just so little margin for error. And also do your first couple on friends or relatives that you can keep track of the healing, that you could also do multiple sessions on. You can continue to tweak and learn from the tattoos. The first tattoos in these styles that you've done, it's best to do on people you have close contact with, that you can get back in the chair. And you could see them heal. You can get them in the chair. You could touch and tweak spots that need that kind of treatment, which is absolutely how I handled it. My early, quote, portrait realism career, my signature pieces are really on less than a half a dozen people that I knew very well, who were willing to take my experimental work at first free, and then later on discounted rate, and then later on full price rate, to help me put it out there and get it known. So that's another thing to think about. But yeah, I mean, there's not much more to it. As you can see, like, this last part's going to go pretty quick. I basically have the right side of the head rendered out. All I really attempted to do here was get some kind of roundness, achieve the shape of the head. I'm doing the blending of the midtones into the highlight areas, or the shadows into the midtone areas, everything except the extreme highlights. Now I'm going to sculpt out the other side of the head. Same color scheme and theory at work. You won't see me put much, if any, of a background on this tattoo, although I'm sure if you've heard or read or seen any of my other instructional material, I suggest background. The only reason is because we are doing a complete background to tie this portrait into the portrait on the other side of the leg, and there was really no reason to do it this evening, as part of this shoot. So that's the only reason it's not there. But I am a huge proponent of background on tattoos. I think it should be there. I like bringing the person's skin into the tattoo and in the background, and bringing the background into the person's skin, to get a nice blend of person and art. And I talked about that in Keep It Real 1. Not to be repetitive, but I'm going to be repetitive. The fundamental stuff is in Keep It Real 1, and if you don't already own it, and you bought this first for some reason, I would really encourage you to get it, because it's going to make things on this DVD make a lot more sense. But if you're an intermediate or advanced tattoo artist that's already attempted portrait style tattoos, you should be pretty okay watching this DVD and picking up on what I'm doing and saying. So Same color scheme in the other ear as was in the first. Apologize for the obstructed view. You see the bag there vibrating like crazy? I just want you guys to know that's not the machine doing that. I actually have a fan blowing to keep me cool, because Friday gets hot. I like to have a fan on me. The fan's blowing the bag. The machine has virtually no vibration whatsoever. So if you're looking at it like, damn, wow, that flight really throws off some vibration, it doesn't. There's a little fan down by the floor pointing up at me tattooing, so it's getting caught in the bag and making the bag go crazy. So, doing the circumference of the inner ear with the papaya plus what looks like a little bit of probably gray, to be honest, because it's gone a little blue, but I know I didn't put out a blue for this tattoo, so I'm bluing things with black or with gray, because like I discussed earlier, gray is a cool color as long as you're using a cool gray, and black is a cool color. There is the color in its more pure form, you could see, not quite as blue. It tends to look like, when you darken it and you blue it up, or whatever you want to call it, gray it up, like those old flesh colors you'd buy from, if those of you were around for this, from National or, what have you, like that kind of, they'd sell you that generic flesh color, and it was very like American Indian, or at least I don't know why they thought American Indians were purple, but I guess this stuff was intended to do kind of their American Indian flash sheets and some of their wizards and whatnot. It was a very bluey flesh color. It was borderline light purple with a little peach in it, if that makes sense. There are still some flesh colors out there on the market that have that makeup. See, now look at the tattoo now. Now all of those weird color shifts all start to harmonize and make sense. Things that were looking too dark don't look too dark. Things that were looking too warm don't look too warm, because it's as I put the neighboring colors in, everything gets affected by the color next to it. So that is something that I don't stress on Keep It Real 1, and it is an advanced art theory and color theory, and it's something that hopefully you're learning from watching this DVD, but I would love for you to further your learning with some type of a painting class or a good book on color theory. So here we are with that kind of bony color, just blending out. Again, I'm just looking, where do I have... Now I'm going through, like, where do I have skin? Where do I want skin? Which in most cases, I don't like a lot of skin showing in my work, unless it works as a color and or value in the tattoo itself. So I'm going in there with color, just to knock out some of the negative spaces. And some of the colors I put in are, that bone color is almost the same color as my wife's skin. So it's just a matter of just having the area look pigmented rather than look blank, but not even look like a different color. And now here we go with the rendering of the eye, very much like the other. Dark on the top, light on the bottom. I'm reinforcing the outline of it right now, just to get it seated graphically and properly. This is being done with the 7 liner, if I had to guess. That might be the 7 shader. I lied. 7 shader, definitely. And there, I just peppered in some black, not saturated, just peppered. 'Cause I don't want to max out that skin yet. You know, it's not. I haven't made that decision. That black has a little brown in it. Not much, but there's a little brown in it. And when I work with round shaders, I use a circular motion 90% of the time, unless I'm building an edge. You know, if I'm doing some kind of fill or fade, it's those circles. I actually learned to tattoo with round shaders. Was tattooing about 1.5 years before I even saw a Magnum. So, shows you, times change. And here we go with the red, that brown, that like out of the bottle marked brown. You've got this reddish brown. Actually, it looks like I might have put either a dip of black or a darker brown in with the reddish brown. The eye that's further away, I'm making darker on purpose. That's definitely me hitting, I was going to say bone, because there's bone. I went a little too light, a little too quick, and would probably come back, if I had to guess, and put some warmth in there. Yep, there we go. So just lightening the brown with the bone color to establish that dark on the top, light on the bottom. You know, the whole teacup analogy I gave you guys earlier. We're in the home stretch now. Again with a warm brown, a little on the dark side. I have that brown, the quote BROWN brown, but I think I also have like their, forgive me if I use the wrong name, like the dark brown or power brown or whatever. That's what I use to darken it, and then I'm lightening it with either the bone color, or I also have I have those colors that I used up in the ear, those kind of fleshy pinks. But it looks like mostly the bone color, because when you put the bone color into that other brown, it tends to turn into this kind of neutral tannish brown. Hey, I'm just trying to make an eye that really is neighbors the far eye. Using dark mids and mids just to put some depth and detail into the far side of the face. A couple of crazy camera moves there. And there is that color again with just a touch of water in it, just so I can graze it into the skin and start to gently establish the top of the snout, nose, schnozzle. So those of you that have Frenchies or Bulldogs, you know they have that like big thick skin roll over their nose usually. So you want to have that, because that, again, that's a key landmark, which is probably in the photo, but even if it wasn't in the photo, if I'm familiar with the dog and I know the dog has that, I want to at least imply it. Yeah, using those mids again to build. And I'm even going a little warmer, if you notice, as I turn away from the main area of the face to the area of the face that's kind of turning into the distance, going a little warmer. I wonder if you could hear that. There's actually people who live above me in my studio, and sometimes it sounds like the kids are running across the floor with bowling balls tied to their feet, but crazy kids in their bowling ball shoes. And now I'm going in with the bone color, so that's still not white, and I'm just dusting across. If I'm calling these colors by their wrong names, forgive me. But it should be very easy for you to visually match these colors to colors you have in your set. Whether you know, I personally use Eternal, you might use Intense or Fusion or Formula 51, or I mean, there's so many great inks on the market. Personally, I have just used Eternal for a long time. The company treats me very well. They helped me out during the hurricane. They helped me out during the filming of our television pilot. I mean, I just feel like they've done quite a lot for me. And bottom line, the product is an outstanding product. So that's what I choose to use. Have I used other inks? Yeah, of course. And I know that there are a lot of high quality comparable inks out there. So again, if I'm calling it by the wrong name, just look at the screen, look at the color, pick the nearest matching color. I mean, what are the odds you're tattooing the same dog anyway, right? But just focus more on the theory that I'm imparting to you about value, about shape, about light, about color, about temperature of color. And really, like I said earlier, one of the biggest lessons, now I am using white to hit the edges nearest the darkest edges. It's going to make all the edges look sharper and pop. And I'm also going to imply some fur direction with white as well. What I was going to say was to revisit the whole color is affected by its neighboring color. If anything, that is one of the hugest lessons to take from this tattoo, because I think as you watch this tattoo, and it's interesting for me to watch it because I just, I did it. I really wasn't watching myself do it, because you know how when you're in the moment and you're doing something, you're just doing it. But sitting here watching it transpire, that's what I learned from watching myself, is like, wow, it's like, it is true. Like when I put in neighboring colors, that's what starts to make it look right. Because it's funny, I sit here, I watch myself do the tattoo. I know the tattoo looks right. I see the tattoo every day. It's my wife's tattoo. But while I was watching myself do the tattoo along with you guys, I'm like, wow, it looks a little weird. I wonder if this is going to turn out okay. But it's about those neighboring colors, and when you place them, what they do to the relationships of all the color around it that makes the tattoo look more correct or pleasing to the eye. See, like, look at that. Everything is really starting to look more like it goes together. It's not random at all. And to me, the choices to push and pull and amplify certain things, obviously we're still not done. We got some stuff in the upper left quadrant, but I mean, the tattoo is more or less finished in my mind. To me, the dog pops off the leg. Like, the things that were done in the nose make the nose come forward. Things that were done in the eye make the socket recede, and yet the eye glow out and meet us. I mean, it almost, to the curvature of her leg, almost fish eyes in a way, in a pleasing way, though. But I'm very happy with the tattoo, and I'm not usually like a guy who's gonna, pat myself on the back for my own work. But I love the dog, and I love my wife, and the tattoo just has that extra meaning to it. Oh, yes, I know, it's very mushy. But, yeah, I think overall, it's about relationships of color to one another and what that does. So I hope that's what you guys are picking up from this, at least, because I know I ramble through all of my DVDs and I try and give you guys every bit of information I can give you. So at least that, if not one of the other 10,000 things I've said. So here you see me doing something reverse, like negative. So what I'm doing is, instead of going inside the established edge that I made with the loose lining earlier, I'm going outside, because I want the positive to be her body and the negative to be her muzzle. So I went on the outside of that line with my color. Again, keeping it somewhat cool, because cool recedes, warm precedes. Another art school piece of knowledge, or art book, or wherever you now tattoo DVD, wherever you come across it, learn it, retain it, use it. But it's true. Warm colors will come forward in a composition, and cool colors will recede, go in the, further back. So what that does right there is, because I put the warms in that side of the face, if I put some cools in the body, it keeps the face out in front and makes the body look further away. Not that they're all up in our eyes on the same plane, or this is some odd thing growing out of the side of her cheek. That's it. I'm just watching with you guys. Sorry, I'm a little bit in the way at this point. There we go. I just threw some of that haloing in there, a little ivory and white, just to go along the edge of the face. That's a better view. Just again to pop the head in front of the body. The body is back, the head is forward. Any redness you see in the body is bruised. It's not necessarily warmth of color. It's just her skin is a little bruised under the bright color. And if I had to guess, I'm either going to start finishing that head or that ear. Something's going to happen soon. Or maybe I just pack up all my equipment and I go home. Nope, I'm still tattooing. That's the good thing, like when it's somebody if it's your wife, you can just like throw a tantrum and leave. I'm done. Not tattooing anymore. Nah. Don't do that. A little of the brown in the liner, just to cut a nice. I really wanted to find that edge between her face being in the foreground, body being in the background, and then a little bit of a line on the body to separate it from my wife's skin tone, because it's way too close. And that should do it. I'm going to hit this too, because this is going to probably be a bright area. Like I said, I am not a guy who's opposed to putting a graphic line on something that's supposed to be photoreal, because it's not. It's a tattoo. It's not a painting. I can use painterly effects, and I can apply painterly knowledge and technique or whatever, but ultimately it's a tattoo, and I've got to put in the things that will make it last for years. I mean, these lines I'm putting in now, they look very graphic. Now, if you saw that, if you see me and my wife at an event or out, about town, you want to see the tattoo, you'll see that they softened very nicely, and they go with the tattoo. It's not like they stick out like, oh my God, look at this line on the tattoo. It really needed to be there. And then when I cut in the background, it's going to be even less evident, because I'm going to be putting stuff right up against that edge. So, I think my stuff tends to be more illustrative or illustrious than photoreal. And I don't care about the classification. I just mean the way I tattoo, the way I paint, the way I draw. I'm from illustration. I'm a big fan of illustrators. I love the Renaissance artists and painters, but I mean, I grew up on illustration. I love illustration. To me, it's just as fine an art as any of the rest of the arts, and I think illustration translates best into tattoos as far as the outside arts go. Because it has graphic concerns. It's, now it doesn't as much now as it did in the past because of, now we have digital press and digital separation and stuff. But the fathers of American illustration like Wyeth and I'm going to forget everybody now, but Rockwell and Wyeth and Biberbum. I'll just make names up, but I mean, those guys really had to do realism, but in a very graphic manner, just because of the way they knew that printers were going to reproduce their work. Being that there wasn't digital pre-press or any of that, a lot of it was just photo shot plates and photo engraved plates and printing press. So anyway, that's a whole topic for another world. Daisy, that's my dog. She'll bite you right in the face too, just so you know. Might look all cute and stuff, but she's a nose biter. My wife too, she'll bite you right on the face too if you're not careful. Just putting in some of the gray tones in the nose. So I guess I decided, hey, before I go up here and finish up the over the eye and the ear and the forehead, I better make sure everything down here is as done as it's going to be, except for white highlights, because I don't want to have to come back down here for anything but white highlights, because it's really not fair to the client. And personally, I try to make every area as complete as I could possibly make it, except for the white highlights. And if the tattoo is safe to put the white highlights in, like the way it's laid out, I'm not afraid of contamination, I'll put the highlights in too, because I just want it done, and I don't want to revisit an area because it's a more painful experience for the customer, A, and B, for me, in my mind, I want to know when I get to the tip of that ear, I'm done. I don't have to necessarily look back. I mean, I will, but if you do things in a systematic way, you'll know when you're finished a lot easier than if you do things randomly. So if I work my way up, let's say from 7 o'clock, 5 o'clock to 11 o'clock, roughly, when I get to that 11 o'clock position and I finish that ear, really my job should be done, except for the white highlights. And I already know where they're going because they'll be the only negative spaces left in the tattoo, and they'll usually be very small. So this is me just implying some lash whiskers. I'm not going to do much rendering. Again, this will have more meaning when we do the background, but I want it mapped in. It's also a good way to break up the graphic edge of the line. So there's little tricks that you can use to please the eye. This is the round shader too. This is going to probably be the 9 shader or 7 shader. Probably not. I think I did 7 line or 9 shader on this piece. I think I said it at the beginning. I'm sorry if I forgot. Again, it's I've gone from a guy who's been really specific while I was figuring all this out 6 or 7 years ago to a guy who tries to be a little more intuitive. So I just knew I needed a fairly fine line round. So that's either going to be, for me, usually a 5 or a 7. I needed a round shader, which is usually for me going to be a loose 7 or a loose 9. A medium-sized magnum, which for me is going to be usually a 13, a large, which is usually going to be a 17 or a 23. And if I need a smaller Magnum, it's either going to be a 7 or a 9. And that's it. I really don't deviate much from that. That's like complex. That's like my most complicated setup is usually 4 or 5 needle cartridges. Whereas, there's things I do now where I only use 2. I can, use a 7 liner and a 7 mag and do quite a bit now on medium to large size tattoos. But I don't know. Ever since I learned to use big mags, I hate to leave them out because there are certain things you could do with them that you just can't do with the smaller magnums. I mean, maybe they don't saturate as much for some people, but I never had a lack of saturation with them, and neither have the guys I know and admire who use them. Some people swear by like a 9 mag and say you'll never saturate anything better than a 7 or a 9 mag. I don't know. I don't think in absolutes. I don't think you'll never do this or ever do that. I mean, my thing is do it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But if it doesn't, don't try and strong arm it into working. That's the mistake. The mistake is having the wrong tool in your hand and trying to strong arm it into doing something it doesn't want to do. That's going to turn into wasted time. That's going to turn into usually damaged skin, frustration, and once stress and frustration work their way into a session, you're not giving it 100% of your energy. Because the thing is, 100% of your energy in my book has to be 100% of your positive energy. It's not the kind of thing like, digging a ditch where you could be pissed off and dig it harder and faster and get it done quicker. Unless you're doing something, when it comes to tattooing, like I said, if it's a painting and tattooing, there's so many similarities, but someone needs to put their foot down and point out the differences. You can do a very aggressive painting. You could throw paint brushes at the painting. You could kick it. You could do what I put, paint on your fist and punch it, whatever. Yeah, this is what some people call art, and that's fine. But you can't do that with a tattoo. A tattoo has to be applied a certain way. Takes a certain degree of concentration. I think it takes a certain atmosphere for everyone to be comfortable and cozy, especially if it's intensive, like something like a portrait or a reproduction of a piece of artwork or a photograph of something. I don't think you're going to get the results you want if you're stressed out and distracted. It's not like just slapping a line color shade shamrock on someone, which I'm not knocking it. I've probably done 10,000 shamrocks in 21 years, but I could tattoo a shamrock, carry on a conversation, do a consultation, juggle 3 friggin' tennis balls and play the cymbals with my knees. But when it came to coming to a higher level with my work and trying to do something different and something finer and more refined, more delicate, no. I want peace. I want, relatively peace, quiet, pleasant atmosphere, low stress as I can get, so that I could just put myself in that place where I can have a relationship with the tattoo and the customer. And I mean, I like to think about the animals when I'm tattooing them. Like, I like to look at a picture of a person's dog and just like get into it, like, wow, this is a cool dog, and try and like ask questions about the dog's personality. And same thing, like if it's not too sensitive, with portraits, because a lot of times you're doing deceased family members or friends or spouses. I want to know a little about the person. Does that change the visual? No, it doesn't change the visual, but you know what? It's all part of the I don't know. I don't want to get too weird with you guys, but to me, it's part of the spirituality of the experience of tattooing someone or something someone loves on their body. And again, I don't think you can accomplish that kind of a connection with a person if you're in the middle of havoc, or there's a circus going on around you. I think it's much more difficult. For me, anyway. Maybe it's just me. All right. We are really bringing it on home now. Throwing the highlights in the head. So as I wrap this up, I'd like to talk to you guys about some things that are going on. I'm no longer, or not for quite some time, going to be doing anything under the Keep It Real label anymore. Because like I said, that really focused on realism and portraits, and I think the 3 volumes are it. You don't need, from me anyway, you don't need more. However, we are going to move forward with a new project called Tattoo Mentor. And Tattoo Mentor will you'll be able to find the information through my website, which is tattoosbykeith.com, tattoosbykeith. It'll be on the box of this DVD, and if not, I just spelt it for you. Those of you who may have purchased a digital download, tattoosbykeith.com. And it'll eventually be on a website called tattoomentor.com, which will be linked through Tattoos by Keith. So always go to Tattoos by Keith for information. And by the new year, which as of the taping of this would be 2014, all the information should be up for the first session. We're only going to accept 15 students. And you have to have at least 2 years tattooing experience and be able to substantiate that. I'll be, contacting the studio where you work at. We have to verify that you're licensed and trained. It's not an apprenticeship. It's not for beginners. What it is it's a 9-week intensive course that you take with me online. I'm going to give you a video lesson every week. You're going to be given assignments to finish and to submit and upload. I'm going to correct your assignments via video, and you're going to have the opportunity to view your corrected assignment with my input, and you'll also be able to view your other classmates' assignments. So, ultimately, every week, you could be watching 16 videos a week for 9 weeks. But all the information is going to be up soon, and it's really for people who are already tattooing. I think we've wrapped it up here. Who are already tattooing and really are stuck and want to bring their tattooing to the next level, and I'm going to help you do that. It's 9 weeks of training with me where you're able to interact with me online, get my feedback on your work and on your assignments. Really, there's no better thing I could, short of you working here alongside me, which is not as great as it sounds. Because it's a lot of pressure. Some people have found it to be too much pressure. I've launched some careers, which is great. Once I launch them further than down the block, that'd be really awesome. But the thing is, this is, like I said, never been done in the tattoo industry before. It's 9 weeks of training with me and classmates, done through an online venue. And like I said, I'll be posting your assignments, video assignments. You'll then be uploading your work. I will then video my corrections of your work, and on it goes for 9 weeks. And in the end, you get certification from me if you pass. And I will also, somewhere in there, I would like to do some type of live conference with everyone, either a live chat or a Skype, or somewhere along the way, either at the beginning, middle, or end, do some kind of a group chat where we all get to talk. And of course, during the 9 weeks, you have full access to me via email. And you can ask any question you want. I mean, as long as you're in the class and, like I said, you're doing the work, I'm an open book for you to learn from. So, it's a unique opportunity. It's my way after 21 years of tattooing. It's the best way I could figure out how to give back to the tattoo community that didn't involve DVDs or a television show or, another seminar or any of that. This is essentially me giving a class in helping you guys improve. It's very similar to the type of thing that I did at the Teaching Studios of Art in New York, but broken out over 9 weeks and with much more intense individual feedback for each student. So we're looking forward to that. And again, it's called Tattoo Mentor. You're going to find the information posted eventually on tattoosbykeith.com. You could also follow my Instagram, which is simply at tattoosbykeith. Twitter is also at tattoosbykeith. Not hard to find me online. So, but that's it. That's what I'll be doing for the next, for 2014. I'm hoping to get in at least 2 sessions if possible. And see how that goes, because if it goes well, I'm going to try and expand it to more sessions, and I would like to bring in other instructors. But as of right now, it's not, like I said, 9 weeks of training for experienced artists only who can substantiate their level of experience through either their boss or certification or whatever. And it's the Tattoo Mentor program. So I hope that sparks some interest. You can email me. It's also Tattoos by Keith, tattoosbykeith@mac.com. And that's it. So that's what Tattoo Mentor is about. So that's going to put a damper on the DVD thing for a while. If I put out additional content, it'll also be available through Tattoo Mentor. What we're going to do is we're going to do some short lessons too, and those short lessons are going to involve, mini lessons, maybe how to draw anatomy of a dog, maybe how to draw a skull, maybe, just mini lessons. I don't want to get into too much detail because that's really not the focus. The focus right now is to have our first 9-week session with 10 to 15 students. And see if this experiment is a success, and I really think it will be. So that's it. That's you guys who are hearing this are the first to hear what it actually is. What is Tattoo Mentor? Well, now you know. The cat's out of the bag. And I'm wrapping it up here with Daisy. We're just putting in the highlights, putting in the whites and the ivories in the final pieces. And we're going to be calling it quits soon, it looks like. This is the 13 mag. Again, I'm looking for negative space and what's been done, what hasn't been done. Where is their skin showing? Where do I want to put some filler? And then obviously the highlights. So what do you guys think of that Tattoo Mentor idea? Hopefully you like it. You could always email me questions about it. Another cool thing about it, I'm just putting some, notice that there's a mid-tone missing above the eye here. That's that neutral kind of tannish brown. There's probably some light brown with some gray in it and a little water. Everybody has a smartphone, so everybody has the ability to take video. So part of it is going to be me watching you tattoo and helping you improve your technique. I mean, people I've helped will tell you it doesn't take me long to analyze your tattooing if I actually see you tattoo and break down your hand motions and the way you're running your equipment and so on, and give you a few tips that could shave years of trial and error off your tattooing. So that's one advantage of this type of a program, is you're going to be able to videotape it with your smartphone or your video camera, whatever you have. I don't know any tattoo artist who doesn't have one of those things. So on top of submitting your still photograph assignments, you're going to also submit some video clips too, and I'm going to give you some information on what I see in the video clips and how I can help you there. So I'm excited about it. Hopefully you are. Here we are with a little muted tan again. Probably has some, that might even be like the medium brown, not the reddish brown, but the kind of medium tan brown. And I may have even dipped into gray, or I may have even dipped into that rigor mortis, because it's like lightened quite a bit but grayed at the same time. And that rigor mortis is a light gray that can gray down a color without darkening it too much. In fact, it'll lighten a lot of colors because it's got a good deal of white in it. So we're just going to put in the lightest colors in the highlights. So I'm going to step back and let you guys watch that. And I'll talk to you in a minute. So as we wrap up the last 10 minutes or so of the DVD, video, however you guys got it, you're either watching via digital download or DVD, I just want to thank you. And if you have any questions that weren't answered on the DVD, you could just send me an email along with your, cut and paste the proof of purchase of your DVD, either from PayPal or Payloads or wherever you got it from. And ask me any question you like. As long as you purchase the DVD legitimately, I will answer any question that you have for me via email to the best of my ability. And also, be patient. It does take me a while to answer emails. Anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks, worst case scenario. But, I had a lot of fun sharing this with you guys. And again, I'm just so happy and proud of the success of the DVDs that we've done. Keep It Real 1, which was a color portrait of Andre the Giant. Keep It Real 2, which is a black and gray portrait. And this now, Keep It Real 3, which is a realistic pet portrait. Also extremely proud of producing and co-directing Chris Lowe's colored pencil DVD, which has been an extremely huge success for our friend Chris and for us as well. So Keep It Real, like I said, really just encompasses the 3 portrait DVDs, and just to clear things up, my studio was Custom Culture. And it is now Tattoos by Keith. We moved because of Hurricane Sandy, for those of you who don't know. And as of the move, I've made a decision to just have my own studio with a station for friends and guests. And that's it. I want to pretty much dedicate my time to my clients and to professional development for tattoo artists and artists. Earlier this year, we had an extremely successful painting workshop with Jason Edmiston, who's a tremendous illustrator from Canada who does, he's most famous for his paintings for the covers of Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine. And he's just a tremendous painter, illustrator, specializing in sci-fi and horror movie monsters, which is something we all love here. And he came down and just gave a tremendous workshop. There are a lot of famous illustrators, designers, graphic artists, and tattoo artists here. So again, I would encourage you to stop at Tattoos by Keith or follow me on Instagram, which I'm probably most active on. And look for those announcements. If you're going to be in the area and we're going to have a painting workshop, I highly suggest you pop in, because it's an education. And if not, like I said, look for local look for local art studios in your area, ateliers or student leagues where you can go just take individual courses, or look for meetups or clubs that do life drawing in your area. That's usually extremely affordable. And you could just bring your sketchbook and some pencils and just sit down and just train your eye and draw from eye to hand. Just all the things that I've encouraged you to do. Even if you just picked one, believe me, you've picked one more than most of the people who buy these DVDs and are just lazy and don't do anything. They watch the DVD, they say, oh, that was really good, and they put it on the shelf and they don't do anything. Don't be that guy or girl. who just watches it and isn't inspired to do a thing. Do something. Do something that you've been encouraged by me to do, and I promise you there'll be a result. There'll be a return. Whether it's taking a painting or a life drawing class, whether it's attempting a tattooing technique that I've showed you here, or just, you know, following some theory or philosophy I've laid down for you here in this video. Just apply something and see what happens, and hopefully it'll get you in the habit of you know, taking some risks and applying yourself, and you know, believing in yourself, and having faith in your ability and your ability to improve, you know, because it's not just talent. Believe me. I mean, I'm sure, I think as part of Tattoo Mentor, I'm going to show some of my early stuff, not just tattoos, but drawings, things that I did when I was younger. And, you know, my friends and family were telling me what a great artist I was. I look at the stuff now, and I'm not talking about the tattoos, but the drawings, and they're just like ridiculous. And when I look at the tattoos, I get physically ill because it's just like, I know for a fact there are kids who have come to me, showed me similar work, and asked for my advice, and my advice was quit tattooing. So no matter where you're at, and no matter what anybody's saying, if you have the willingness to learn and the willingness to do the hard work, you can get wherever you want to go. I mean, there's something to be said for raw talent, but there's a hell of a lot more to be said for hard work and dedication. And it really does come down to, what are you willing to do? And what are you willing to give up and not do anymore? And without going into too much detail, those are questions that I think every artist has to ask themselves at some point, or herself. And the decisions you make are going to dictate the direction your life is headed in. And I'm not trying to end on a heavy note, but it is what it is. I mean, if you really want to have the joy of doing your best and being creative and sharing your gifts with the world at their best, and be the best you can be, you have to kind of operate on that level, not only as a tattoo artist, but as a person. Because it all matters, and it all relates, and everything is part of everything else. So I just encourage you to just do the best you can do, and be the best you can be, and be who you want to be. If you want to be a great artist, well, then be a great artist. A great artist wakes up every day and works real hard at it, or at least went through an extended period of time in their life where they did. You need to do that, because what's separating you from the artists you admire is just hard work and long hours. They all put in an extended period of time. I mean, even back when I was a professional musician, I became, you know, a pretty accomplished drummer, a pretty well-respected drummer. Well, that came from being a young kid who practiced, you know, 4 or 5 hours a day. Now, when I was an adult and I was playing in bands and touring around, was I practicing 5 hours a day? No. But you know what? I had to put in those 5-hour sessions to get to the point where I could go and have the gig I had, and, you know, have the fun that I had traveling around and touring and playing music. Well, the same has been true of tattooing. I've had to do the same thing. When I made the decision to take this seriously, well, then it became about carrying a sketchbook everywhere and drawing all the time, and not just reading the books, but doing the exercises in the books, and not just buying the DVDs, but doing what they were telling me to do, and not just attending the seminars, but attending the seminars and running home immediately and finding someone willing to let me do the techniques that I had learned. So I just want to, you know, get you guys pumped and promise you that there is no reward without risk. And sometimes risk is as simple as just sacrificing something and working harder at something else. But anyway, I feel tremendously privileged that people have bought my downloads, my DVDs. People have emailed me, contacted me from all over the world. And it's amazing how small the world's gotten, because you got to remember, I started tattooing when no one had an email address, or there wasn't much on the internet. So to get to the point where someone from, Germany or Switzerland or Spain or what, contacts me about a tattooing question because they've seen my DVDs, well, that's a blessing. It's pretty incredible. So I just want to take that further. Like I said, with Tattoo Mentor, if I could teach somebody in Brazil, that would be incredible to me. So here we are in the home stretch. I'm putting in the white highlights. This is being done with the 7 liner, probably, or shader, whatever it is. It's definitely not a 9. It's not that big. And I'm just hitting up stuff. I'm hitting the specular highlights, which are the things that are usually wet or glossy. And I'm also doing some highlights in the fur. It's not something I would do on human skin, but the reason I'm doing it is I'm trying to show reflection off of the shiny surface of the hairs, and also the direction of the hair in general. Pet fur can be shiny and can reflect light. And that's it. I'm just going to put in a couple of these eyelash whiskers up here. Again, this is just for your sake, really. I'm going to reinforce this stuff when I do the background. So I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed tattooing it and spending time with you. And this is Keep It Real 3, the final chapter, the return of the revenge of the... I don't know if I can even... Am I allowed to say the full title of the movie, or then I have to pay somebody? George. Can I even say his whole name? But you get the point. So I hope you have the trilogy. If you don't, I would hope you would invest the time and money in it, because I think it's worth having. And hopefully I will see some of you in the virtual class of Tattoo Mentor. And hopefully I'll see some of you in my chair. Come get tattooed. I'd love to have you. I don't just do portraits. If you'd like a portrait of a dog or a family member or a movie star or a monster, that's great. If you'd like something else, that's great too. I love to draw original things. Check me out again on Instagram, on Twitter. For the most part, I'm always at Tattoos by Keith, TATTOOS BYKEITH. The studio number is 516-623-5665. You can call anytime. It's always an answer machine. Very rarely will someone pick up, but if you leave a message and your phone number, someone will call you back. My email is tattoosbykeith@mac.com. TATTOOSBYKEITH@MAC.com, like Mac, the computer, Mac. And, of course, tattoosbykeith.com. And what else? Instagram at Tattoos by Keith. Twitter at Tattoos by Keith. Tumblr is Tattoos by Keith, if I'm not mistaken. And my Facebook is Keith.Caramello. I can't add anyone, but I think I have one of those fan pages, or you could follow me. To be honest, Instagram is the one I communicate through the most, because there's no limit on followers. But you can pick up the phone and call me, or send me an email. Seriously, don't be afraid. If you're an idiot, I'll just hang up, or I won't reply. But you're not an idiot, because you bought this DVD. But no, seriously, I'd like to make myself accessible to people who support me, and by buying this DVD, you've helped support me and my art, and I can't say thank you enough. So that's it. all the best in your tattooing careers, and do something good for somebody and pass along what you've learned. Do some great tattoos. Send me some photos. I'd love to see them. And here she is. This is the Daisy Duke, our puppy. Just wiping down with little antibacterial soap. I don't use green soap because I find it inflames the skin. That's antibacterial soap diluted with distilled water, and now just a final rinse with some distilled water. And that's the final tattoo. Thanks for watching, guys. Enjoy the rest of the video, and I'll hope to see you soon. Be good. Art is my life. It feeds me, it clothes me, and it just keeps me going. And it's led to, art has led to my marriage. Art has led to my relationship with God. Art has led to my, oh man, so many dreams have come to pass thanks to art. Hey, I'm Keith Caramello. I was born and raised in the Bronx, and I've lived here most of my adult life on Long Island. My new studio is on the South Shore, where I tattoo, paint, airbrush, sculpt, pretty much anything I can get my hands into that's creative, I'm in it. But tattooing has really taught me about value and my art, because my whole childhood and my whole high school and college career, I would do these pieces and people would tell me they liked them, and I would just simply give them away as gifts. I had no idea that my art had any value, whether it was monetary value, intrinsic value. Thank God for the tattoo business, because it showed me that my talent was worth something, and it led to commissions in other mediums, whether it be painting or sculpting or toy customizing. So, a lot of people look at the differences between the mediums, whether it be tattooing, painting, charcoal, but really there's a collective consciousness. The creative process at its core is the same for all the mediums. The common thread is hard work. At its highest level, you really need to bust your ass to be at the top. Nothing sadder to me than wasted talent. So if you have talent, don't just rest on your laurels. Talent's the seed, and hard work is the water and the sun and the thing that's going to make it grow. And the other thing is your imagination, and that's limitless. My heart right now is in this project Tattoo Mentor, because for me, this is what I need to give back to the tattoo community and to the art community that's given me this blessed life. If you're willing to put in the work, I'll show you how, and you'll get where you want to go. And that's keeping it real.